Hello, and welcome to the show Goldsquadrongays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays break down each episode of their favorite Star Wars TV shows while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers, and unlike Bradley in the Vamp intro, I have three intros that I was going to go with, and couldn't decide, so I will now rattle all three of them up. I'm Charles Rogers, and The Sims Medieval is a very dangerous game for me to play. I'm Charles...
Medieval. Oh, okay.
Yes. I'm Charles Rogers, and I have finally read Percy Jackson the Lightning Thief. I'm 32.
Okay, it's been a minute, but sure.
It's been a minute.
There's about 9 novels now, but sure. Okay, great.
I'm sure there's a little more than 9. And then my third one that I was going to go with that I couldn't decide was I'm Charles Rogers, and the AMPTP are a bunch of feckless, inept, useless cowards.
Pretty on brand with everything that you stand for. Every single one of those intros.
Yep. You see, I couldn't decide between the three of them because I'm indecisive like that. So I just went with all three. Rather like some of the characters in the book we're going to talk about being indecisive with their choices, and then they make decisions, and maybe those decisions are not super great, but we'll get to that now. Bradley, do we have any news-ish to report other than at time of recording this, which is August the 6th, the AMPTP met with the WGA to talk about maybe resuming negotiations. Didn't go well.
Okay.
So
I was gonna say it's already like Sunday, so didn't they meet on Friday?
They met on Friday, yeah, so they met on Friday, and according to the WGA, which is the side of the story that I believe, the WGA met with them. And one of the first things that the AMPTP said was, we're going to do a press blackout. So don't go talk to the press about what happened at this meeting. Don't go talk to the press about what happened to the negotiations. Oh, but WGA says, okay, fine. Sure. Literally, according to the WGA, they hadn't even, sat down to talk about the meeting after the meeting before they start getting calls from reporters and deadlines putting out articles about things that were said in the meeting. So the AMPTP just went and sent people to go talk to the trades, and they were going to try to spin it. So the WGA released a whole thing about, here's what was said in the meeting. It continues to be a fucking train wreck, which would be super easy to resolve if they would just give the writers what they want, and also the actors, but in this case, specifically the writers.
Well, there you go. I mean, I only choose to believe whatever Fran Drescher says. So anytime
she was not involved in this. So.
I know, but anytime I see anything about the actors strike, I just immediately I ignore it unless it's something coming out of her mouth. So I'm just like, all right, I need to see what she says about this situation.
I know that's kind of half a joke, but that's honestly a good thing to do. Go look for the primary sources, go look for union people that are directly talking, because a lot of the time, a lot of these articles that are coming out from the trades, and this is weird, I was thinking about this on my way to go make my coffee before this recording. I was like, it's so weird that this is one of the only few cases where I'm like, no, actually don't trust the trades necessarily on this one, because most of the time on the show I'm like, if it isn't reported by Deadline, Variety, or The Hollywood Reporter, I do not give a shit. Or if I haven't gotten that information myself directly from someone with a verifiable track record, I'm not interested in discussing it. There's a reason we don't discuss every piece of Star Wars discourse on this show. Because a lot of it is a lot of it is my buddy who's a janitor who works at Lucasfilm said that they were gonna make a BB-8 show, which they were gonna do. That's most of our news, which is why we don't talk about it. But in this case, bizarrely, because the trades are owned by a lot of the same companies that make up the AMPTP, it's actually a lot harder to parse out what their angle is. It's a really bizarre, complicated situation.
It's funny watching them do the gymnastics because I was watching, like I said, I was watching an interview with Fran, and it might have been on either CBS or the Today Show. I don't know which one it was. Somebody was interviewing her about it, and it was a morning show, and they were like, we have to say up front, our parent company is a part of this group, and then they literally all they did was they said that, and then they go, okay, so now what's the situation? And then she's like, well, here's the real tea. Here's really what's happening.
The rules are different, for journalists and things that work for the AMPTP, There was some discussion at the beginning of like who exactly SAG-AFTRA like represents specifically, what's
Right.
crossing a picket line, et cetera, et cetera. So good for them though for coming out at the top of that interview and just saying, yeah, we were our parent company is one of the companies that's involved. Yeah, it's hard to parse it, and like a lot of people are saying like go follow the union sources, follow strike captains and things on social media because you're going to get some of the best. There's a person on TikTok. I don't know this person's name, but they're doing like their Strike Tea series where they're doing like daily strike reports. It's pretty good if you're on TikTok. I have forgotten the person's name. I do apologize. But there's people on TikTok that are walking the picket lines that are disseminating that information.
I like it.
Speaking of groups that are not necessarily giving out the correct or accurate information in order to spin an agenda, that is a segue.
That was
Bradley
a good segue.
is like banging his head like heavy metal style.
Yes, that was good.
What are we talking about today, Bradley?
Talking about Rise of the, well, I guess it's called Inquisitor, Rise of the Red Blade.
Inquisitor, Rise of the Red Blade. A whole ass novel based on a side character who appeared in 2 issues of Darth Vader 2017 by Charles Soule. Fucking amazing.
If this is not the most Glup Shido thing ever.
This, oh my god. What
This is
was
Glup
she
Shido the
anyone's
novel.
Glup Shido? Was she anyone's Glup Shido? I need to know this. I desperately need to know, was there anyone out there who, like me and Admiral Trench, had latched onto this character in 2 comic issues and then got a whole novel about her? Badly want to know.
I feel like she might be, only because, like, Inquisitors are different, right? Like, I feel like Inquisitors are something that you can Glup Shido on really easily because it's just, like, we don't know too much about all of them, so it's kind of, like, a nice... Like, if you're, like, really into, like, the Seventh Sister or whatever, you're like, oh, fuck yeah, she was amazing. You know what I mean? Like, stuff like that. Like, people are like, oh, yeah, I love the Fifth Brother. Like, he's, like, my favorite person ever.
No
you know
one
what I mean? Like,
says that.
I mean,
no one says that the
but
Fifth Brother is their favorite.
I just feel like, I feel like all the Inquisitors, though, like, I feel like somebody's a fan. Everybody's a fan of something. So I guess everybody's a fan of an Inquisitor at some point.
Well, you also really like the Inquisitors, but I just think
I do.
You like the aesthetic.
You know what it is? I think that's exactly what it is. I think I love the aesthetic of just, I'm an evil, air quotes, evil person with a red blade, but I'm not like religious. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I kind of like that like twist.
I'm not into your force cult. I'm just here to serve looks and
exactly.
be the villain.
They're all wearing super sleek. It's black. It looks really nice. Like, I love that.
They're not ultra powerful, so you can feel a little empathy for them, but at the same time, like, they're powerful enough to give our heroes a credible threat. Like, they hit that beautiful, beautiful sweet spot in terms of Star Wars storytelling.
Yeah, and I like, even in this one, it's like you have this character who is like, she's powerful, but she's not like so powerful that she can beat Space Jesus. And so, like, and she mentions that in the book. She
gets her ass kicked by Space Jesus twice in this book. Yeah.
She's like, I can take him. You know, what's so special about him? And then it's like, oh, nah, dude, like, that's Jesus.
No.
You can't take on Space Jesus.
And she correctly identifies she shouldn't even fucking. I think this is a good point to mention too, that spoilers for the book, if you haven't read it, that these are not spoilers that we've given out so far. However, spoilers for the book will follow if you have not read it, and you should absolutely read it, especially if you have not read Darth Vader 2017, because the ending will, I think, legitimately surprise you. Anyway, I'm going to talk about a vaguely spoiler thing in 3, 2, 1. She doesn't even fucking bother with Palpatine. She takes one look at Palpatine, she's like, no.
Yeah, she can feel it.
No.
Yeah, she's like, no.
I'm not even gonna fuck with whatever's going on here. I'm not gonna fuck with it. All right, do you want some Bradley, would you like some information on Inquisitor, Rise of the Red Blade?
Let's hear it.
So Inquisitor, Rise of the Red Blade was published by Random House Worlds on July 18th, 2023. That's right, bitches, we're doing a current book.
A current book? This is our first current book.
Up on that current one. Yeah, if you want to start sending me ARCs, we might do more current books. Just throwing that out there. It was written by Delilah S. Dawson. No, we know Delilah S. Dawson. She's written Bradley's favorite Star Wars book, Phasma. But she also wrote other books that we have talked about or will talk about, namely this one and Galaxy's Edge Black Spire.
Yes.
She's also written the Skywalker Saga, which from my understanding is basically just a retelling of
okay. I just looked it up. It's like a
doesn't really count, but good on her for writing doing
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
She's written a couple of comics in the Star Wars Adventure line, and she's written a couple of short stories for
Hmm.
Star Wars Insider, including the Asajj Ventress story, Worthless, from Stories of Jedi and Sith, the short story collection.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yes, so Bradley's just now learning that they have now done two short story collections, Stories of Light and Dark, which I believe was the Clone Wars one, was the retellings of the Clone Wars, some of the Clone Wars episodes,
Mhm.
and Stories of Jedi and Sith, which was a just an anthology of Jedi and Sith stories. Like they had let's see, Barris Offee has one, Asajj Ventress has one written by Delilah S. Dawson, as previously mentioned. Vader, Palpatine, Rey, all the Jedi are here, and it's all the main ones. And also Barris Offee for some reason is here. Side note, Delilah S. Dawson, this is my first time seeing what she actually looks like. She is stunningly beautiful. Like, go Google what she actually looks like.
You know what? She needs to be in a Star Wars.
She does need to be in a Star Wars.
She could be
She
in a
is.
Star Wars.
She needs to have a cameo in something
Yeah,
because
let's do that.
oh, she is serving. She is serving in every photo that I've looked at.
I mean, I know Dave's thing is always like Rebel Pilot, but like I feel like she could have something else. Like we could give her something a little bit more substantial.
Give her like a senator. Get a bunch of the Star Wars authors and let them be
Ooh,
like senator, New
put
Republic
her in
senators.
Andor.
Yes.
She's like Mon Mothma's best friend in the Senate. You know what I mean? Like just like throw. I don't know what planet she's
Oh
from,
my
but
God.
she's the senator of something. So there you go. That's
So
our
yes,
plan.
yes, that is Delilah S. Dawson. We love Delilah S. Dawson on this show
Mhm.
because she keeps writing these good ass books.
I've read every one, so yeah, she's.
Bradley's read
I mean,
every
I've
every
literally read
Star
all of
Wars
her
book by
novels.
her,
Yeah, yeah,
which is saying a lot from him.
yeah.
The book was narrated for the audiobook by Kristen C. How did I mispronounce the name Kristen? I'm so bad at names. Kristen C. I apologize. Sia, I apologize for that last name, Kristen. She's done a lot of audiobooks. Mostly it looks like romance novels, just going over her stuff. The only Star Wars books that she's done are this one, Rise of the Red Blade, and then in the Battle of Jeddah, she's the voice of Ada Forte in
Mhm.
Battle of Jeddah. That means nothing to Bradley, but High Republic girlies will be feeling sad right at this moment with the mention of Ada Forte. As previously mentioned, Inquisitor Rise of the Red Blade focuses on Iskat Akaris. Iskat Akaris previously having only appeared unnamed in the 2017 run of Darth Vader for two issues, issue number 19 and issue number 20, which were written by Charles Soule, the guy who writes Star Wars when Kevin Scott isn't doing it. So that's it's a little background on this novel and the people who were involved in its creation. Bradley, what did you think of Inquisitor? Rise of the Red Blade.
You know, I thought the intricacies of like every single chapter being, you know, a euphemism for World War II was really like a
Oh my
nice effect
God.
on it. I'm just kidding.
So
No,
when you
honestly.
imitate me, Bradley, okay, so the divas have set the standard. When you imitate me on the podcast, you have to kind of do this
Oh,
sort of
that's right.
nasally talk from your nose
I forgot.
voice.
I
You
forgot. I
have to
forgot.
kind of get close to the microphone here.
Mhm.
Steph is the best at it. Sorry to Chris, who does it the most. Steph is the best at it. But that's how you have to do it, Bradley.
No, I actually okay, so I really like a lot. If anything, I mean, I know the novel is just good on its own, but if they wanted to make it a TV show, I wouldn't be mad at them. It would just be like a Kenobi thing, like a one season thing, and that's it. You know what I mean?
In
Like I
Bradley
don't need, yeah.
speak, so for our new listeners, when Bradley says he wants to see something as a TV show, that means he really liked it.
That's basically it, yeah. Um,
Because he and I both had the same training, so we both look at things the same way and immediately go, okay, I love this. How can I break this down into 10 to 12 episodes?
Well, hear me out. So, this is going into my new idea for a show, which is just called Inquisitor. And every season follows a different Inquisitor. So, it's kind of like American Horror Story in the sense that it's an anthology series, but it's like I want it to be that kind of thing. It is, I mean, and when I say American Horror Story, I literally mean like this would be like almost a horror type show, like kind of like a New Mutant style.
Ooh.
Like,
I love that.
yeah, it's like the aesthetic I'm going for is like New Mutants. Like, I want it to be like a dark, kind of more scarier Star Wars show. And every season is a different Inquisitor. So there you
I
go.
love that. I love that so much. The Inquisitors have been getting so much love recently,
Yeah.
which has been really nice. Because they were just sort of in Rebels, and then in 2017 they were in the Charles Soule comics. But now they're just turning up everywhere. They were in Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right.
They were in minor spoilers for Jedi Survivor, but there's an Inquisitor that briefly shows up in Jedi Survivor. One of them is the main villain of Battle Scars, a book which we will probably not be covering on this show, since it is a tie into a video game series that Bradley doesn't play. However, I do have to recommend it to people purely because this book is incredibly gay. Also, I know a lot of people didn't like Battle Scars. I think these people are wrong. I think the book is actually good. It's just written differently than most Star Wars books are written.
Interesting.
But that's fine. Whatever. Go read it. It's very gay, especially if you want some of the stuff in Jedi Survivor to suddenly make a lot more sense to you. Go read Battle Scars. One of the fifth brother turns up in that. And now we have this book. And there are Inquisitors that are going to show up in other things that happen. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, Inquisitors, lots of them. Can't wait for more Inquisitors in my life. I really liked the book. I really liked the book for the same reasons I really liked Phase 2 of the High Republic. And I'm not going to get into it too much because, there's a non-zero chance we may end up covering the High Republic on this show if the strikes drag on for long enough. But Phase 2's central villains are a cult. You don't need to know much about them, you just need to know they're a cult. And we get a lot of look inside this cult and how this cult operates. And it's very much like some sort of evangelical force cult. Like, there's some wild shit going on in these books. My experience reading Inquisitor Rise of the Red Blade made me feel the same type of uncomfortable because it also reminded me of growing up in religious institutions and not really fitting in and being told the sort of standard advice that they give out to everybody, but it wasn't really working for me. And we couldn't really figure out why it wasn't working for me. Why wasn't I normal? Why wasn't I like everybody else? Plot twist, it's because I'm really into dick. That turned out to be the problem.
That'll do it.
But what I thought was really interesting about this book was that unlike Phase 2 of the High Republic, which is pretty explicit, that the Path of the Open Hand is a cult. They're an evangelical cult. That's the kind of shit that they're doing. We're just going whole hog with it. Rise of the Red Blade does something much different, but equally as clever. Because the Jedi in the novel are never necessarily portrayed as a cult. They're just portrayed as really dogmatic. Like, they are so up their own ass that they cannot give this person the help that they desperately need. Find them the outlet they desperately need. They keep being like, oh, you wanna go out and do the battle? No, you should go into the library. That will help you. It will mold you into the good little Christian girl to be. Oh, did I slip up and let my religious trauma get into the podcast again? But that's basically what it reminded me of. And so I was reading it and I was like, oh hell yeah, I'm so into her little acts of rebellion. And then I got to the end and I was like, oh yikes, Iskat. Oh boy, I understand how you got here, but man, you're making some choices by the end here.
But what I do like is they explain it early on is that well, all we know about Inquisitors is that they're tortured and then, they turn evil or whatever. But this is the first time that we've ever explored, one of they explain in the book that I think at least two of the other Inquisitors are similar to Iskat and they quote unquote chose to be Inquisitors, they weren't tortured to be Inquisitors, which is the fifth brother and the Grand Inquisitor, I think. But
yeah, the Grand Inquisitor becomes an Inquisitor very, very, very quickly. He's recruited very quickly to do it. So some of them were basically already primed and ready to go. Some of them, they had to kind of break them. Of course, if you've played Jedi Fallen Order, you've seen this. You've seen this process play out. You've seen what it actually looks like when they have to break an Inquisitor, and it's not pretty or pleasant. It's not fun.
No, but what I like is that this is the first time we've seen someone choose to be an Inquisitor, or like they've given us a reason why, like someone would even bother. Like someone would be like, "Nah, I was a Jedi, but now I'm like free. Like I actually like have the freedom to like make my own choices, and like I don't have to just meditate all day and blah blah blah." And that's what's so interesting about her is that she like all she wanted was to know like who her fucking mom was basically, and then it was they were just like, no, shut up, like don't ask questions, don't, that's not our goal right now, like don't worry about killing people, don't do this, don't worry about people dying, like it's okay if people die, they're just part of the force, like fuck off, like you just need to focus on
Where
your
did the
studies and
therapists
stuff.
go? There are literally
Right.
therapists in the High Republic. The Jedi have therapists. Where did the therapists go over the past 200 years? What happened,
They
Jedi Order?
clearly don't need
Where did
them
your
in the
therapy go? Well, no, and two, it's part of the thing with a lot of the majority of this book actually is concerned with how the Jedi Order failed her.
right.
And yeah, that is, they repeatedly fail her by offering her the same platitudes and the same advice that they give to everyone. Like, she notes at times where she's talking to people and they repeat this same stuff like, oh, he's become one with the Force. And she notes to herself, like, do you really believe that? Or is just this like the thing that we say? Is this actually meant to comfort me, or is this meant to comfort you? And it's so interesting how Dawson has weaved together this tragic situation, because the only person like that actually gives her the time of day and gives her any sort of actual empathy is the droid technician. Hizo, I think is the name. The droid
Yeah,
technician
yeah.
that she talks to, who, you know, turns out to be not somebody who was acting in her best interest. And when she killed his ass, I was like, you know what? She was right to do that.
Yeah, I
That guy
mean,
sucked.
it sucks, but it's also weird too because like they established so early on that she like he's the only person she can trust. Like she feels so comfortable around him, like all this stuff, and then she's just like, "Whoa, dude, you fucking betrayed my trust. Like I'm going to murder you now because you fucked me. Like you can't do that." Like it's so
If
good.
you're somebody who's in an environment like the Jedi Order is portrayed as being in this book, which is
Mhm.
an environment that is not giving you the help you need, that is isolating you, that is making you feel lesser than or making you feel like you don't belong while also demanding your allegiance. It is really, really easy for bad actors to come in and get their claws into you in the same way that Hizo did on behalf of Palpatine, and then Palpatine in general. You know, the way this book does what Revenge of the Sith desperately wanted to be and didn't pull off
Mm.
quite where it should have. Although Delilah S. Dawson did say that the novelization of Revenge of the Sith by Matthew Stover was a big influence on this book. I can tell.
Oh, okay.
Also, highly recommend anyone who wants to try a Legends novel, go read Revenge of the Sith by Matthew Stover. It is not only one of the best Star Wars books I've ever read, it is one of the best books I have ever read, period. It is a fucking masterpiece. Please go and read it. It's fucking phenomenal. But this book kind of shows that, how easy it is for like this one person who you look at and go, oh, he's giving her like validation. He's giving her alternatives. He's giving her encouragement. Well, he's doing this because he wants to recruit her to the dark side.
Right.
And like the Jedi aren't great in this book, but the dark side also sucks. And that's another thing that I liked about this book is that it made no bones about the fact that once you're in the dark side, once you're one of those dark siders, that's not good.
Right.
That's
You
not
might
the
have
thing that we should be
freedom, but it's
aspiring to.
not, yeah.
You have freedom, but you're controlled in a different way.
Right. And that's what she explains very early on. She's like, I thought I could like do whatever the fuck I want. And he's like, or she realized like, oh yeah, she got like a week of freedom basically. And then it
Yeah.
was just kind of like, nah, fuck off. Like you're gonna do what we say to do when we say to do it.
It's the difference between working at like a retail store that doesn't give you any PTO and sucks, and
Right.
working at an office job that does give you PTO but also sucks. Like,
Yes.
good, at least they're giving me PTO, but like, this is also miserable and I also hate this.
Exactly.
Which I'm not speaking from personal experience. I'm quite fond of my job at the moment. The other thing, too, that this book really impressed me, and I know I'm going to put a trigger warning tag at the top of before we even get to the intro, but once again, I will be mentioning here, if mental health and suicide is a thing that like triggers you, maybe skip the next couple of minutes of this because I do want to talk about some stuff that happens in the book related to that. So this is your ample warning. If that's a thing that bothers you, feel free to turn this episode off, skip a few minutes, but I am going to talk about it. The way that it depicts first of all, the note that it starts with, the author's note that it starts with, had me fucking in tears, like before I'd even started the book. And secondly, the way that her mom is portrayed, how she like came out of this organization and she couldn't really ever like fit in with anyone and ends up taking her own life. This is a character that we never see at any point other than flashbacks and dream sequences. And her story hit me in the face like a ton of bricks because of how well it was handled. Just somebody who comes out of this environment that wasn't good for them, but they were never able to move on from that. They were never able to build a separate life despite trying, because it just, nothing worked for them. And they became despondent to the fact that they thought there was no hope of anything. Really, really impactful for me as a person, as kind of something that can be referenced and can have a conversation about with people who need to have that conversation. Because folks, I can tell you as somebody who did almost take his life on a few occasions, it does get better. You don't have to do that. Please reach out to someone if you need to. There are resources that are available to help you. There are people that love you. Your life is worth living. But as somebody who went through that, seeing that depiction of it really was something that was emotional for me, to be able to see that depicted in a Star Wars, and how that's shown as a tragedy. That if she had continued on, if she had, kept trying, eventually she would have met her daughter. And now that can't happen.
Right.
That potential ending is closed. There is absolutely no chance that will occur, and that's fucking heartbreaking.
And it's also like, I mean, I know we don't like to talk about like what ifs all the time, but it's like,
we don't.
If she had met her mother, she probably would not have continued to be an Inquisitor, or she would have at least pulled back and been like, wait a minute, like there's more important things than just getting revenge on the Jedi or whatever for my trauma. Like she goes,
she goes to this planet and she's like, I like these people. I like these people. I like this culture, but I can't ever be one of them. I'm in too deep now. And she chooses to go back to the Inquisitors when, if her mom had been there, there's a fairly good chance that she would have stayed. And maybe not, but things might have played out differently, particularly in the ending, the last 2 chapters of the book. Probably would have played out a lot differently if she had been able to meet her mom. Speaking of those last 2 chapters, Bradley, you want to talk about those last 2 chapters? Because I knew they were coming, because they were just 19 and 20, issues 19 and 20. What did you think of the ending of the book?
So is that ending in the comics? Is that same exact ending in the comics? Okay.
Yes,
everything
so it's just from
depicted.
Ithkoth onward is just a depiction of
what happens in
the comics.
Okay.
What's his name? Twi'lek, the Twi'lek. Tualin.
Yeah.
The minute I read about him,
mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, this is the guy from Darth Vader number 20.
Got it.
Oh, yeah, he gonna die. They're both gonna die.
But it gives so much more context to it. I mean, it really like you really care almost more like what's going to happen to them, and it makes their death a little bit more rewarding, I would say, because I mean, I didn't read the comic, so I can't speak on the comic, but I feel like this does a lot more.
Yeah, I'm looking at panels of it now, and even the one panel that I'm looking at, that hits different if you know who these people are.
Yeah.
Oh boy, yeah. Because it ends with this sort of her ascent, and she's sitting on this throne drinking wine out of a goblet, which iconic behavior, by the way. Iconic behavior.
That imagery is so great. And then she's also like, you know what? I think I'm just going to start drinking wine after every single victory I have.
find some
alcohol. Yeah, she's like, whatever alcohol they have, that's what I'm going to do.
Oh my God, you are the energy that every I don't even know how to say it. I want to see this at a drag show so badly, is what I'm trying to say.
Ah, okay. I figured that's
Uh,
where you were going with
yeah, that's where I was.
it.
That's where I was going. Is I want to see this exact moment where she's seated on the throne, but it's somebody in drag.
Gotcha. I would love that.
I want this. I want this. Certain TV shows that I'm not going to mention should do Star Wars challenges. For me, specifically, and also to annoy my boyfriend who watches a lot of that show, but I don't, and he keeps talking to me about it. Yeah, but then the last two chapters happen, and
Yeah.
she's just, oops, I got murdered by Darth Vader.
Yeah, it's like what can you do? Like
Nothing.
like
A
once he's
lot of
coming
the
after you, it's like,
Inquisitors.
oh well, like that's it. Like I knew where it was going to because I thought so to go back to what we were talking about, when we read the author's note, I didn't know anything about this character. So I assumed when I read the author's note that Iskat was going to be the one to take her own life. I didn't know her fate in the Star Wars comics books, or the Darth Vader comic books. So I didn't actually know that that's how she died, or that she even died. Like I didn't even know that. I just assumed. And so after I read it, I was like, oh, like so you're fucked because Darth Vader's
Yep.
coming after you. And because I thought, like, as I kept reading the book, I was like, damn, she's gonna get out of this. Like how, like I was like, how is an Inquisitor gonna essentially leave the Inquisitorius and just kind of fuck off and do
You
whatever you
don't?
want? You don't. And so far we have seen every
Eureka
single
is the
one. Yeah.
only time you do this
Yeah,
is
every single one has not made it out except for Riva. And so like that's wild to me. Like I'm just like, whoa, because I'm rewatching Rebels and I'm like seeing how they die, and I'm just like, oh yeah, really, you either go on missions and die, Ahsoka kills you, or Darth Vader kills you. It's really one or the other.
or
Like
Darth
there's
Maul
really no.
kills you.
Oh well, that's true.
Darth
Yeah,
Maul
he does
takes one
kill
of
them.
them out. Cal Kestis, minor spoilers for Jedi Survivor. Cal Kestis also has an Inquisitor kill count,
Oh really? Okay, well then there you
which
go.
good for him.
So yeah, I
But
guess
yeah,
yeah, you really die. Yeah,
most of
that's
the
it.
ones that I'm thinking of, they're generally taken out by Darth Vader. Tends to
Gotcha.
be who takes most of the ones out. Because three of them off the top of my head I can think of were taken out by Vader personally.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that would make a lot of
Ugh.
sense. I mean, that's how
I
you know, if you hire a bunch of people and you're like, oh crap, I don't have enough hours, like that's how you get rid of them, you know, you just
Yes, you just start murdering them, which I think under late stage capitalism is a thing that I'm sure companies wish they could do, but unfortunately for them they cannot, and fortunately for the rest of us. That was my win coming out very briefly. If you're familiar with the character I play on for Light and Dice, they are constantly bemoaning the evils of capitalism, and that comes from a place, listener.
But one last thing I do want to say about this book is that like the one thing they do explore and they talk about is the fact that like Iskat says, ooh, the Inquisitors are almost too good at their job, that we're slowing down. There's not as many Jedi left to hunt down. Therefore, what are we even needed for at this point? Because she even says at one point, she's like, yeah, once we kill the Jedi, I'll retire, you know, maybe I'll come back
Oh,
to my home
honey.
world and I'll like protect
Honey,
them. I'll become like the
no.
president or something. Like, and I'm like, girl, that is not, well, you think Palpatine's gonna just let you all just leave and like do
Honey,
whatever the fuck you want?
no.
I just thought it was so interesting
No, honey,
because this
no.
is really the first time we've ever talked about, I mean, in at least some kind of media that I've read or been a part of, that is like what even happens to the Inquisitors, really. I mean, other than the fact that they all just die by,
Most
I
of them
guess,
die.
yeah, most
I
of them
mean, the
die by
truth
A
is,
New
most
Hope
of
or
them
whatever, but
die.
yeah.
I think that by the time we get to Rebels, really only the Grand Inquisitor, Fifth Brother, Seventh Sister, and Eighth Brother are left. That
Okay.
most of them, I think, are gone, at least the ones that we know of.
Right. Riva's
Uh,
probably somewhere in the
Reva's
ether.
probably off somewhere, but she
Yeah.
doesn't count anymore. She's not an
Right.
Inquisitor. She actually managed to get out, and the way she managed to get out was because Vader. Here's the interesting thing, too. We see how thorough Vader is.
Mhm.
If he hadn't been so petty and stabbed her exactly where she got stabbed before, that she literally fucking survived as a
Right.
child. And he was like, no, I'm going to be petty and stab her in the same place. Did you think you were going to get a different result,
Right.
Anakin? Did you think that this was going to go differently? It was going to be exactly the same, dude.
Yeah. Well, he's always been
She
kind
was
of petty, so
obviously
I
going
guess.
to survive. He's so petty, and
Yeah.
that's the thing that saves her essentially is Darth Vader's pettiness.
Yeah.
Whereas most of them we see they're either killed by Jedi or they're killed by Vader himself or they're killed by Maul also. takes one of them out. I think he takes out Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, I think Maul does take out Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, because
I want to see Sarah Michelle Gellar play her
book.
live action.
She's in this book too.
I know, it is good though. Yeah,
she's
it is
in
cool.
this fucking book,
and she's a lot nastier in this book.
Oh yeah,
like
I love her so much in this book.
She's kind of rude in Rebels, but like she's vindictive in this. Like she's like, nah, I'm just gonna fucking kill the shit out of you. Like I don't care. Like she's great.
I love her so much, and also like it's interesting the way this book parallels the relationship between Iskat and the other Jedi, and Iskat and the other Sith. Sorry, Iskat and the other Inquisitors, not Sith. Good lord, I'm thinking about Stories of Jedi and Sith again. I'm talking about how Luke Skywalker is implied to be gay in that book. It's an excellent book. Also, Sam Maggs, you are my hero for that story. I just want you to know, if you're listening to the show, which I know you're probably not, the relationship between Iskat and the other Inquisitors, and how she is always on the outside no matter what group she's in. Right. And that's a really interesting point too, is because you think the book is going, oh, the Jedi do a terrible job of integrating her. No, the Inquisitors just didn't even fucking try.
Right.
They're like, we want our people to kill the shit out of each other.
Because which is not a good business model.
For some reason. No, because they're not doing a long-term business model.
Right.
They're buying up the company and they're burning it to the ground to get what they want, which is a couple of extra hands to eliminate the Jedi that Darth Vader can't do personally. Because in Legends, he did most of it personally, and it was a little much, buddy.
Yeah, he's just one guy.
Much. He's one dude. Like he's one guy. Although his fight with, what was her name? The Dark Woman, that unironically ruled. That comic was unironically really, I still remember that to this day. So fucking good. I've been listening to a Legends novel lately, which I may talk about at a later time on this show because I have some thoughts about this book that I'm reading. Speaking of thoughts, do you have any final ones, Bradley, for this book?
Yes, I do. Final thoughts are justice for Iskat. I need her back. Somehow she returned. And she teams up with Reva and they do stuff together. I don't know what it is, but that's my pitch.
Great. My final thought is I was genuinely surprised there are no queer people in this book, given that it hit me, a queer person, so hard.
Yeah, that's true.
But interestingly, there are none. I'm fine with that. There's just an interesting note. As I would recommend, queer people read this book, be super careful. At least as a queer person, even though they didn't have any explicit rep in this book, I still felt seen, and my journey felt seen. My journey of leaving the church and what came after, that felt super seen by this book. So I do still recommend it, even though there aren't any explicit queer characters that I remember in this book. It's very good. It's very traumatizing. Please read the author's note. And also, please keep your expectations reasonable for the fates of these characters that if you've listened to this episode, because we have casually discussed it.
Yeah.
Little late for the anyway. That is it. Bradley, you want to talk about what we're talking about tomorrow? Because tomorrow. What we're talking about.
Now we're a daily podcast? Okay, Charles, you must have a lot of time on your hands because I am not a daily podcast here.
Yeah, actually, iHeartRadio picked us up. So now we're getting tons of money just to sit here and talk into a microphone. No. I wish that I could make this my job. I wish I could make this my job. That would be so cool.
Yeah, if I could just come into work every day and just be like, all right, guys, what hour or minute of this movie or podcast or thing are we talking about today? Like, what can we do? Oh, this is just a single episode about Ezra Bridger? Okay, great.
We actually discussed, because the last couple of episodes, we came into the current episode not sure what we're talking about. So in the pre-meeting, I was like, okay, Bradley, we're going to sit down and we're going to find out what the fuck are we talking about next week.
Right.
What are we talking about next week, Bradley?
Unironically, we're talking about Ahsoka, but not that Ahsoka. We're talking about the Ahsoka novel.
Yes, we are going to do the Ahsoka novel.
It seems right.
It seems appropriate.
It does.
To talk about the Ahsoka novel. It also gives me an excuse to reread it this week because I haven't actually read it in a while. But yes, the current plan is just a little note about where this is all going. As mentioned several times throughout the show, SAG-AFTRA and the WGA are still on strike. Now, SAG-AFTRA is the one that's really impacting what we can and can't talk about on the show in order to stand in solidarity with them. However, in solidarity with those strikes, we are not doing anything that, or trying not to do anything that is been asked by SAG-AFTRA for people not to do. And that includes quote-unquote promotion of upcoming shows. Now, they have said review and critique is fine if you are reviewing and critiquing something that is currently airing. Rewatching a show on a streaming service is like in a rewatch capacity or companion capacity is not. So currently, we are clear, we think, to potentially review the Ahsoka show. We are probably not going to do it as it's coming out. We're going to go through some of the other books first, and we're going to continue analyzing. We're going to continue talking to people that are close to the negotiations, that are close to everything that's going on, and attempting to determine where we want to go. But we are going to do books for a couple of weeks into the Ahsoka show. So that is the current, what we're looking at this moment. Next week, we are going to do Ahsoka, the novel, by E.K. Johnson. And Bradley, go ahead and run our socials.
Thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gays. Did Charles fuck something up? Send us a message at goldsquadrongays@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at Gold Squad Gays. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Gold Squadron Gays. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gays, where we post the podcast as well as exclusive content. Please join us next week and every week for more of Gold Squadron Gays.
If the AMPTP doesn't get off their ass and do something and negotiate, come on, you stupid fucking cowards. You useless bags of shit. You fucking incompetent morons. All of you are stupid. All of you. Every single one of you is an idiot. Get back to the negotiating table, you fucking useless dumbasses. And Carol Lombardi especially, fuck you. Get back to the negotiating table. Stop going and saying shit to Deadline under the table. Fuck you all. Anyway, can you tell I'm a little annoyed with the AMPTP right now?
No.
Okay.
Never.